Hello everybody, my name is Christophe Debarge. I'm based in Brussels. I work for a company organizing courses at the European institutions, and we use Moodle for our courses, European languages courses, which goes from English, French to Estonian and Maltese. I'd like today to talk a bit about blocks and how to use them more to bring content to your course in a few clicks. As you will see, I always bring some examples and you will have a tutorial. I won't go deep into the tutorial. You will have access to them after the presentation. If during the presentation you've got some questions, feel free to write in the chat and I'll be sure to answer either directly or after in the forum if the answer is a bit too long or needs more explanations. Before starting, I'd like to just explain why I chose that topic for the presentation. Because as you know, and you all use Moodle, it's can be demanding to create some content, and also to make all learners to come back to the course can be also a real challenge. So we need to provide them with some good resources, and sometimes our trainers don't have time to have so many resources available. But also in some cases, I will take the example of Estonian courses at the European institutions. It's quite challenging to find good online resources for Estonian as a foreign language, as you can imagine. So the blogs were quite useful, and I will try to show you how to bring some dynamism in your course. And also, it's quite easy to do, it's straightforward. So even with a trainer who is not really Moodle friendly or willing to do the extra miles, just in a few clicks, you can really see the benefit of using these kind of blocks. Let's start with the objective of the presentation. Of course, to give you more ideas, but also to exchange about how we could use these blocks further. I will give some examples about language, about non-language, but of course, it can be used also in more company context or university. It can be used in any field, really. And I would try every time to give you the keys to start using these blocks. It depends on the configuration of your Moodle platform. You might need to ask your IT to install the block, but then to configure it, it's quite easy. You don't need to be really advanced in IT to do that. And of course, we've got the forum ready. If you want to exchange after about how you will use these blocks, that will be the good place to do it. So these are the 5 blocks and we're gonna talk. First, I would start with a small reminder about like a good practice when you start using a new block. We'll talk about the random glossary article, the remote RSS, podcast, video, embedding YouTube into your course, and also we'll talk about Twitter and how it could be a good tool to create communities within your course. Before starting to talk about the blocks, I would like to highlight a few questions you need to ask before using one, because you know you've got many blocks available. Some are really good, and some are maybe not that good in your configuration. So it's quite important that you've got everything in all these questions in mind. First, you need to be sure that your block is fully tested in various environments. The 5 blocks I will show you today, they are really ready to use in any configuration, from Internet Explorer 6 to the most updated, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, all the browsers are quite okay. But if you decide to go further and try to use another block, always try to check before that it works in your configuration. And also in maybe older version of Internet Explorer, I don't know your configurations, but sometimes you know your students might not have the most updated version, so it's important to keep that in mind. And also of course, the mobile version. You need to check the forums. Each block has a forum, so be sure it's often populated. You will find enough information to maybe answer the questions you might have. Check the support available. If it's maybe the last post was 5 years ago, it means it was Moodle 1.9 or even lower, so that's not really a good sign to use it with the latest version of Moodle. Check if future updates are available, and also it's quite important things to look at. It's the languages available. If you are working with trainers who maybe don't speak English, it's quite important to see if there is a package available in the language of the trainer or in the language of the students. If it's something a bit more advanced. And when the block is installed, I think it's quite important to have a look at the permissions because you can customize your block even further. I won't go into that part during that presentation, but I think it's really worth spending some time looking at the permissions available. Let's start with the first one, which is the glossary. I'm pretty sure all of you have seen or used glossary in Moodle. I will try to, in one minute, sum up how you can create a glossary in really 5 clicks. Basically, it's to use an Excel document outside Moodle and then just do a batch import about all your articles. I really think glossary has a huge potential for courses. You can use it in many different ways. And if you associate it with the block random article from Glossary, really it can bring to your course new content at each connection. I've put 2 examples, which is the business idiom of the day, which is used during the English class. So basically, every time our students connect, they will see a new expression with the definition. Could be used with a proverb, and in a few minutes, we will see many other use of it. That's quite straightforward to do. But it gives some kind of dynamism in your course, and every time the student connect, they will see new content. So it works as a kind of a flashcard, I could say. And the comments from learners are quite good. They really like that, and the trainers can also use that as a warm-up during their face-to-face session. So they can start their course starting about which idiom of the day have you seen? Do you understand it? How do you like it? Do you know an equivalent in your language? So it's a good way to start a discussion. Of course, in the classroom, according to the field of your courses, you've got many different options. I gave about 5-6 examples, but of course, we can have many more ideas, and feel free to put in the chat more ideas if you like. The quote of the day could be used in any field. It's quite a good way to bring some content. Maybe it could be quotes only in your domain, and it could be kind of a game at the beginning of your course and to start. You could even ask to your students to know a bit, and you could add the bonuses if a student come in the course face-to-face and start explaining his understanding of that quote. We've been using that glossary block also to provide tip of the day. It was more on our side, kind of learning to learn pieces of advice for our learners. So basically giving them advice how to strengthen their listening skills, but it could be also directed toward trainers, good practices they could do in the classroom. Really, you can use the tip of the day for almost everything. I know that some school or university can be keen to use this also as a kind of admin rules reminder. It's a way to avoid complaint, also to inform your students. In our case, we've been using that for the exam, and also the when people are absent, because after a few absences they're kicked out of the course. And always they complain that they don't know. So here we put the most important rules, and every time they connect, they see a new rule, so they don't have any reason to complain. They've been informed, so they know the rules. Word of the day can be great, for example, in geography. Every time you present a new word in that field, it's a good way to prepare for exams. It's a good way also to make your students remember what kind of vocabulary they need. Could be in history, main historical character to review before exam again. Science concept, it could be also used as a homework. You always ask your students to comment. And if you tick the box, you can directly comment in that block. You click on comment and it opens the glossary directly. So as you can see, there are really many ways to use this block according to your field. And also, I think the only limit is how you could, it's your imagination now. There are many ways to use that. Here you've got a small tutorial how to do it. As I told you before, there are 2 things. One is outside Moodle. basically you create an Excel document. I gave an example in the course. So if you go back to the course, you will see the example and the converter. So you feed your Excel document with minimum of 2 columns, concept and definition. But if you want, you can add categories and keywords. You copy this Excel column into XML converter, which is provided in the course, iMoot course. And then you just save it as XML. You go in Moodle, you create your glossary, you give a title, give all the information you need, and you just need to drag and drop your XML file and import everything. Last step is to add the block. You configure it, you add a title, and then every time it's ready. Really, it takes 5 minutes to proceed. I would say the longest part is to create the Excel document, but it could be also a task done during 2 or 3 courses, and then after you've got enough material to have a nice block. Yeah, it's really nice feature to the import, and it saves a lot of time because glossary is great, but if you need to create it online, every time it's quite long. And if you've got more than 1 trainer doing the same course, I'm pretty sure you can have a small project, and it's quite quick to have, let's say, 20 or 30 concepts ready. So you will find that tutorial back in the iMoot course after the presentation. As you know, time is counted, so let's go to the next block. Remote RSS, it works the same kind of way. You want to, as a trainer, to provide your learners with some content, and many people want to share their ideas, their work. So you could use the remote RSS as a way to connect between the publishing world and your course. And it's a good place for your students to get new ideas, to ask them to be curious, to go for some reading, but also to evaluate, analyze, share, critique, develop. And then you can share with your students many articles. The advantage really is that if you've got some students, but you ask them to go and find an article in science, for example, they will go on Google, they will spend hours looking for the article, and at the end, you even not sure you agree with the article they choose because maybe it's too complex, maybe it's not enough complex. So at least with choosing good RSS feeds, you will be the one who choose at least the area where they can go. It's as if you give them a library, but you say you go on in this section, don't go anywhere. So really, it's save a lot of time for your student. In terms of language, many language activities are available as RSS. For example, British councils, but also for French as a foreign language, you've got many. So it's really quite useful. And let's say you could share learning language activities, and you could recommend activities to your students without needing to send a link or send them outside of Moodle. You can share articles in your learning fields. And why not ask them to comment one article in a forum or come read an article of the blog before coming to class, and you use it as a warm-up discussion. It's really easy to configure, as you can see. You just need to select on Google your RSS feed you need, and it's just one copy and paste of the block, of the link, sorry. There is another block which is not available in Moodle by default, but you could add it. It's RSS Plus block. It's quite good because you could share also some listening with it and some podcast. It's quite a good way to flip the classroom. So you can use the podcast as a source to warm up for class discussion. And students can really in one click listen directly to some podcast. And again, it's a way for your student to still have some freedom to choose what do they want to listen, but you still keep the control because you give them access only to one feed, which is something that you know, something that you trust, and you know that the student won't waste time listening to any random article online. Again, to configure it, it's quite straightforward. As I said, there is one outside Moodle step, which is even easier than the glossary. You just need to find your feed. Usually, you've got most of the radio or TV who've got a podcast selection or RSS feeds. So if you type on Google RSS Science or RSS English learning activities, you will find tons. You just need to filter them, select maybe 2 or 3 you like, You just need them to copy the link and add a block, add your feeds, and then in one click you can switch from one feed to another, because maybe there are some feeds you want to keep during the whole session for all of your courses. Maybe sometime you want to give access to a listening podcast only for 2 weeks when they need to prepare for an exam, for example. It's really up to you to configure it as you want. Let me go to the next slide. I'd like to spend some time on Twitter, which is quite interesting tool to use in your classroom. I'm pretty sure, as you can see in the iMoot courses, you've got already a Twitter integration. I've put an example with my tweets, and and I think iMoot team also use that blog to share content, share tweets with us. Many people want to share their ideas, and trainers, as we said before, want our students to see other ideas and think about themselves, but also, so it's good to provide access to Twitter, and again, you've got control about which tweet you want to show, which feed you want to follow. But also, I think Twitter could be used within the classroom as really a learning tool. I gave a link to a study made in university in the States, which present how Twitter is used in their context. It's quite really interesting to read. You've got concrete facts. I would recommend, if you're interested, using Twitter in your Moodle class, to have a look at it. Before checking how we can do that, let's think about how can we use it in the classroom. I would say the first step, the basic step, is accessing information. For that, your students, they don't need an account. You need an account, or you create an account for your classroom, and this will give access to Twitter easily to your students without even needing an account. Depends also on the age of your students. Sometimes you don't want to allow them creating social network. Maybe sometimes it's just not possible for many reasons. So here, if you provide a block, Twitter block in your Moodle classroom, I want to follow the British Council idioms Twitter account. Every day they tweet about idioms, and I want to share that with my students. I create my account, let's say Christophe, my Moodle course. I add the block Moodle, and I just follow my tweets, or I have just followed the tweets of British Council. So every time your student connect to Moodle, they will see the feeds, and they don't need an account because you don't ask them to answer or do anything, just sharing information. Of course, you can go further. You can have a collaborative approach, and you could use Twitter to build creative homework. For example, you can ask them to do some task about creative writing. You do a tweet and they need to answer. Of course, 140 characters, you need to be imaginative if you want to do something. Or maybe you can use just a question before your class. You start a question and you ask them to answer. That way you arrive in class, you've got already some stuff to start your discussion. Of course, for that, you need minimum a class account. It could be your own account, but if you don't want to mix your normal Twitter life and your class Twitter life, you can create a class account. And if you want your students to answer, they need an account. It could be used also to comment on reading. Maybe you've got some reading list for your students and you want them to comment, or at least to get involved in the reading. So if they can see comments of their mates in class, it's quite motivating, and you know how they like to compete, so they will like to answer that tweet, so maybe they go a bit more serious about their reading. That's a really good way to do some collaborative reading, let's say. Also, you could use that only to create a kind of community. In case of big classes, you've got more than 60 students, not always easy to have them interacting together in a chat. We can see it now, we're talking, we've got maybe 10 or 15 people attending. Not everybody wants to start a discussion in the chat, but maybe if you had a Twitter account, you could directly ask some questions or make some comments on my presentation. Also for students, a good way to reduce stress. People who use already Twitter, they're quite quick to tweet, so maybe they will participate in your class a bit more. It could also be used as kind of reminder. In that case, you just need an account for the class. And if you want to spread important information about your course or about your year, it's a good way to do that. Let's see how to do that, to embed some Twitter into Moodle. As I say, you need a Twitter account. Two options: you use your own Twitter account or you create one for your classroom. You log in into Twitter, you click on parameters, there is an app section, you click on app, you just need to add the feed you want to follow. For example, you can add Vini, or you could add British Council or Science Academy, whoever you want to follow. And it will provide you a small HTML code at the bottom, just copy it. You add a block, a basic HTML block, and you just need to paste your Twitter app in the block, and that's it. Your student will have access to all the tweets without needing an account. They need an account only if you want them to answer. That's quite straightforward, but really nice, and also it brings some good dynamism to your page layout, and students are quite impressed usually when they see a Twitter account in the classroom. That thing about YouTube, sometimes you want to provide some videos, but your admin would say, "Oh, it's too heavy. You cannot really add videos. You don't have the rights." You know, you've been through that discussion, I'm pretty sure, many times. So there is one way to do that. It's just using an HTML block and embed a YouTube video on it. It's a good way to provide a kind of a library, but I think it's even better if you use a playlist. We use it for English as a foreign language courses, because British Council, they've got tons of videos about learning English, and they've got playlists, which means you embed it one time, but you can have access to all the videos from the same place. Again, quite straightforward to do. Outside Moodle, you just need to find a YouTube channel or playlist you like, click on embed. You need to change the size. Here it's 300-200 if it's a 3-column theme in Moodle. So you need to change the size to 300-200. You copy the HTML code. You just add a block HTML. You copy paste your YouTube code, and that's it. If you go in the course iMoot 2015, the course we are using for that presentation, I've embedded a Moodle video if you want to see how does it look. If you have any questions, it's a good time to ask them. You can write them in the chat, or you can unmute your microphone to start asking some questions. Not all at the same time. Any questions, comments? Really feel free to share some more ideas if you. How do you use it, your Twitter account in your course, Joshua? Is it just to share information, or you use it as a homework also too? You have the PowerPoint? Yes, I will put the PowerPoint right now. Okay, share information. It's a good start, I think, just Twitter, but try to use it for homework. It's quite good too. Have you used audio with the glossary EADs for language, graphic for learning construction object? Not really, but I think you can still import them in the glossary. We did use the same block with more advanced glossary, which contain links. So anything you put in the description will appear there anyway. So for the image, I'm not sure, but for links, I'm convinced it's working fine. If you don't have more questions, really, I would really appreciate if you could share some ideas you've got about using that glossary block in the course, because really it's a great module available in Moodle, but we don't use it often because we forget that we can import whole concept. And to go further, I will put it also into the Moodle course in the forum. Be aware that you can create also a quiz. You could generate a quiz directly from a glossary with a plugin, and it's really one click and you've got a quiz associated to your glossary. So I will put that tutorial too in the into Moodle. That way you can have a look at that next step, I would say, but that will be for next iMoot. Thank you very much for your time, for your patience, and I really count. Yeah, a quiz from Glossary is really nice, and I wanted to add it in the presentation today, but we've got half an hour, and I don't want to put too many information, but I will put it in the forum. That way anybody who is interested would be able to do that. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll let you go. That way you can get some rest before next session. Have a nice day, morning, or night, according to where you are. Bye.
All right. Thank you very much, Christopher, for your session on behalf of the iMoot team. I'll end the recording there, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jim. Bye.